Welcome on in, everybody, to another edition of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Dominic got to go in here this week, holding down the fort. No Tyler Jones, no David Starr. We'll talk more on that later. But, of course, we have a friend of the show, Jerry Jordan, here on the panel with us. And, of course, our highly anticipated guest, Alex Key, national and Nashville recording artist. We're going to talk and have a great conversation with here, upcoming just in a few minutes. Before we get to that, Jerry, friend of the show, editor at kickinthetires.net, also owner of the website. Jerry, how you doing?
Yeah, in case, just to make that clear for all those people that hate me out there, I want to make it official that in case you didn't know when you were calling for me to be fired a couple weeks ago, I own the site. So just saying, it's a tough road to hoe there. I'm not gonna give it up after 23 years. So, but yeah, doing great. But yeah,
it seems like culture, right? That's what you're saying, Jerry. You beat cancel culture.
Seems like every week I do something that someone thinks is stupid, and they want me fired.
Well, there you go. Well,
or my hard card pulled.
And then I get a
I got a call from NASCAR, and they're like, "Why do they want your hard card pulled? You didn't do anything." But like, whatever. But you know how people are.
Questions. That's all.
Yeah.
As we know, NASCAR fans they can be wishy-washy. We've seen them on Twitter. They love a good race. They love a bad race. How about that race this past Saturday night, Jerry? Kyle Larson putting an old school ass whooping on the field, leading 462 of the 500 laps, took the lead, never held back, won both the stages, and just had a clean sweep. Had a near perfect race. Goes on to win that 28th race of his career, 5th of the season, tying him with Rex White and Carl Edwards on the all-time wins list at 30. But more importantly, it seems like that 5 team's got all cylinders firing right now, Jerry. They seem like the team to be.
I don't know if it's smooth sailing into the playoffs, but they're definitely doing well, and it's good for Larson's momentum. But look, 73% of the people that were on the poll, for Jeff Gluck said that it was a horrible race. I watched the entire race. I don't know if it was a horrible race. It was a race, and it was an okay race. It wasn't a great race, but the people I think that said it was a good race were Kyle Larson fans, and the people that said it was a bad race was anybody that was listening to social media, because as we know, most people can't make up their mind either way. And people hate Hendrick and people hate Larson, and there's no sense in it. I mean, look, we're on the track, we're racing, it's Bristol, it's a night race. I had a good time watching the race. I know the tire fall off didn't happen, but that made it interesting. If we'd had tire fall off like we had in the spring, we'd had every 50 laps cars coming in, they would have complained about that. The truth is, the one thing that is a constant in NASCAR is that fans are going to complain about something that happens on the track every single week.
Exactly. There's always going to be something to make fuss about. It seems like that's what it was this week. But hey, we always hear about NASCAR fans wanting old school racing. Well, that was old school racing right there. The last time somebody led that many laps at Bristol, you have to go back, I think, to 1977 in Kelly Yarborough.
So 77 or 67? I knew it was way the heck back there.
A long, long time ago. But Kyle Larson leading over 90% of the laps just can't be underestimated on how good that team was. They had everything dialed in and figured out on Saturday. We will get to the cut line and take a little more of an in-depth look at who's in, who's out right now. But before we bring in Alex, Jerry, just kind of going through the drivers that were eliminated. We saw 2 past champions that have won in the playoff era a championship title. And, of course, Harrison Burton in his first championship run, his night ended with the power steering issues. Brad Keselowski not having a good night. Martin Truex Jr. seemed like he was in until there was a penalty. Again, Gibbs as well. Ty Gibbs having a great run. Joe Gibbs Racing just fostered by penalties the entire night. But of all those drivers that did in advance, who surprised you the most?
It kind of pains me to say this because everyone's going to say, oh, you're just pandering. I really thought Ty Gibbs was going to advance. I thought he has come so far in this sport, and he's gone through a lot. But take out the fact that he's Joe Gibbs' grandson. Take out all of that. The kid can drive, okay? And I'm sitting in my sim right now, and he's got a sim that is like out of this world, and he practices all the time. He focuses on his racecraft, and I'm just surprised that he actually got knocked out. And I think a lot of it's probably bad luck, because we saw bad luck obviously with Harrison Burton as well. I don't think anybody was as surprised about Harrison. I think they probably might have 50-50 on Keselowski, Truex hasn't been great all year. He's had spurts of greatness. Um, so they've been kind of on the fence. But Ty Gibbs, really honestly, in my opinion, was the guy that I thought would squeeze through to the next round.
Seems like maybe there's a lot of learning lessons for that team to be able to take to next year. That young team, Ty Gibbs, in just his second full-time year in Cup. We don't really count that 2022 campaign because he was thrust into the role with Kurt Busch's injury. But certainly that 54 team is getting better and better, Jerry. It feels like that first win is coming.
I do. I think the first win is coming. I I I I'm surprised it hadn't already hit, and he's been close. So that's the good thing about it. And he's got all the backing in the world. I mean, he's not going anywhere. He's definitely got a guaranteed contract.
He is just getting started when your grandfather owns a team. Absolutely. Well, we won't keep him any further. This week on Let's Go Racing, we're joined by Nashville recording artist who happens to hail from Wilkesboro, North Carolina. He does have a great NASCAR connection. Looking forward to hearing more on that story as well. He's amassed over 1 million followers across various social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram. And some of his hits include Outdated, Haunted House, and We Want You Back, and more. So without further ado, Alex Key joins us here this week on Let's Go Racing. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
That's a country voice if I ever heard it.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely. And David,
and I'm from Texas, so
exactly. David Starr, being a Texas guy himself too, he wanted me to tell you, Alex, he is so sad that he couldn't make it today. He's a little under the weather, but he did want to make it up to you. With David owning the Team Texas Racing School at the Texas Motor Speedway, and they do their events, he said he wants to get you hooked up and get you in a race car, behind the wheel of a race car, and get you to his racing school whenever they can make that work. So we'll get together and iron out those details after the show, but David wanted me to let you know he's going to make it up to you.
Dude, that would be awesome, man. I'm a huge fan of fast cars, so that would be a dream come true for sure.
Absolutely. And our co-host Tyler could just hype it up more. He's done the racing school, and the cars go about 150 miles an hour. You get a lot of laps on the track. You're with an instructor. They really take you step by step before they cut you loose to do it. But nonetheless, you hear a lot of people talk about that school and David's school. And again, he wants to get you a part of that. We're going to make that happen.
Oh, that would be awesome, man. Thank you so much. That is so cool.
Absolutely. Well, take us back to the beginning, how it got started for you with your music path. Certainly, you have amassed a huge following in not a lot amount of time, and are only growing by numbers. So take us back to the beginning for you and your start in music, and how it all began. If you had influence from family members, or for those that don't know the backstory, where does it begin for you?
It begins in 1996. It all begins in 1996, the year I was born. What a wonderful year it was. I remember it like it was yesterday. I don't actually. I barely remember the 90s period.
I remember 96 because my daughter was born in 96. So just,
Oh, well, I'm biased, but I think it's a great year. So,
yeah, it's a good year. Good year. My daughter's great. So,
but it all started really. I always had a love for music. My mom raised me on, all the country greats, George Strait, Alan Jackson, George Jones. I mean, all those guys, but also, Metallica and, Dio and all these different old rock bands, classic rock bands. So I had a very diverse music raising, Guns N' Roses, stuff like that. So I loved music. When I started playing guitar when I was 11, because I had a PV guitar that I'd kind of tried to play on when I was real young, probably 8. And then by the time I was 11, I broke my humerus, and it was not humorous. But I broke it on a go-kart. So I'm a very big, vehicle, fast things guy. I love cars. Like we were talking about with the racing school. I just love being behind the wheel of stuff. And I was driving a go-kart, flipped it, broke my humerus. And so I couldn't do a whole lot with my arm, but I could move my wrist and stuff. And so I picked up the PV, and I started playing, diddling around on it. And I learned the solo to November Rain by Guns N' Roses before I ever actually could play a G chord. But then my mom taught me how to play the drums when I was around 12, when I got used to my arm back. And So I taught myself, miscellaneous other things, banjo and just different instruments, a little bit of piano here and there. And so, fast forward, I got out of high school and I always kind of knew I wanted to do music, but had to make money. So I started doing landscaping and did well at it, made decent money and enjoyed it. I like working outside and, using my hands and stuff. But, it's not, it wasn't where my heart lied. I knew it wasn't. And took a bad job one day, and I come back home and I told Mom, I said, I don't think this is it for me. I said, I really want to give music a shot. And she had managerial experience. And she said, let's make it happen. And so I started, we started playing shows, just all over the place, 150 shows a year, just anywhere that would take us, basically, just $200-300 shows, and all over, North Carolina, South Carolina, wherever we could. And then we shifted our focus, towards really only just 3 or so years ago towards, okay, we need to focus on releasing music and people caring about, my songs and stuff like that. So that was when we shifted focus to, releasing my stuff. And ever since then, that's when the tables really turned and saw, okay, people care about, my voice and my songs and what I've got to offer in the country music world. And it's been a great ride, and we've been very blessed in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. And when you think back on that journey where you started, where you've gone on this whole musical experience, is there a specific moment maybe that you first realized, hey, I have a shot to make this. I can make this my career. I can make this my way of living. Is there a moment that really sticks out to you that really resonates like that?
I think, when we got a Sprinter, a Sprinter van, and we were, doing shows, like I said, across just wherever. That was in 2019. And, we'd just go wherever. And, I was not huge paying shows, but, making a living, paying the bills. And I was like, okay, if this is all there is, like I'm playing music, paying bills, and, things are good. There's a lot worse jobs. And but I think the first time I was like, okay, this could be really big was I released a song called The Fool That I Am, in a music video, and that was filmed here in Wilkesboro. And I put it on TikTok, put a couple of videos of it on there, and a couple of them blew up. And one got 400 and some thousand odd likes. One got 250, 300,000 likes. And so they did really well, millions of views, and the numbers started going up and going up and going up. And then I put another song out, started pushing it, and numbers kept creeping up. And so that was really around the time that I was like, okay, people do care, and that was 2021, late 2021. So, just around 3 years ago. And that would have probably been the time that I started to really, we started to put the hammer down and say, okay, this is a viable career, in the stream. Most people, a lot of artists, there's a very small percentage that actually make money off of their like actual music, off of what they put out, for people to listen to. Most artists and stuff make money off of playing cover gigs and, shows like that. We're very blessed that, there's a sizable income source coming from people listening to the music. So that's really where it started to take a turn towards, okay, the music itself is becoming the career.
Jerry,
so you weren't just doing cover, you were doing your own stuff.
Yeah, I was doing my own stuff. I was doing, I always told people when we were booking, we did about 70-30. Early on we would do 70% covers, 30% mix in some originals. And now we're doing probably 60% originals, 40% covers in a 2-hour set, because most of our crowd is, unless we're doing like a big music festival where we're not the headliner or something, most of our crowd is there to hear my songs. And we throw in the big fun classic 90s covers, just to, for nostalgic purposes, big sing along songs and stuff like that. But it's really cool to see the crowds there to hear our stuff.
And I feel like too, Alex, a lot of people resonate with the sound that you guys have, the music that you're putting out, because nostalgia is a real thing, whether that be a classic rock fan or a country fan or whatever the genre is. People are always talking about yesteryear and talking about good music. And I feel like you guys have really hit on something there. And I got to admit too, that's how I discovered you guys a while back, was on Instagram, seeing some of the reels that had been, I'm sure, made for TikTok that made their way to Instagram, talking about that old school country stuff. I mean, it resonates with people.
Sure, it does. Yeah, I mean, it's and that's the thing. Like a lot of times, people ask me. Like we did a thing with Country Music People magazine. I think one of the questions he asked was, when you write a song, do you set out for it to be a '90s country song or an '80s or early 2000 whatever? And I don't. I just when I sit down, like I said, that's what I was raised on, and that's just the sound that I love. It's the sound that I love making. I feel like I'm good at writing because I think the big thing that a lot of people miss when they try, because now we're in a time, like you said, nostalgia's huge. We're in a time where everybody's wanting to try doing a '90s style country song, and I think the thing that most people miss out on is when they're writing it is '90s country was so big because it did touch you, but there's also a touch of humor in there. There's just a little touch of funny, and so that's something I always try and include in my songs is unless it's just a really deep cut, I try to have a little bit of funny in there, and so I feel like I'm just that's what I'm pulled to. It's what comes out of me. So it's not me trying to release a '90s country song. It's just what I do, and but for marketing purposes, when I jump on TikTok and stuff, I'm like, the most '90s sounding country song you'll hear all day, stuff like that. And it makes people stop because, like you said, people love it. And so they're like, okay, let's see if this dude actually, follows through with what he's talking about. So it's really cool to have so many people care about that.
So I want to weigh in here real quick because I have no musical talent, but I mean, I don't. But I grew up with Clay Walker's sister.
Oh, cool, man.
I am very, very good friends with Tracy Bird and Mark Chestnut. I'm from
Wow.
Beaumont, so I'm from where all these guys are from.
Oh, goodness.
Before all that, and I'm going to show you, I want you to Google "Kicking Out the Footlights Again," which
Sure.
is it's an album with George Jones and Merle
Merle
Haggard.
Haggard, yeah.
I shot their cover for that.
Really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
the reason why is because when I was like 9, 10 years old, I went to a grocery store, maybe a little younger than that, Grammer's grocery store in Woodville, Texas. And George Jones would go into Grammer's grocery store and sit and talk to Mr. Grammer, who ran the meat market. And I was down the street at my aunt's house all the time, and I'd go in there and I met George Jones as a little kid, and I met his wife Nancy. So when they came through for one of George's last concerts, when they did the album with Merle, they called me and said, "Hey, can you come shoot some photos? We're doing an album." And I'm like, sure. So if you look on Wikipedia, they're Kicking Out the Footlights Again, you see photographer Jerry Jordan.
Oh my gosh, man.
Yeah.
That is so cool because I
So
love that song.
But I know nothing. I know nothing about, like I can't sing to save my life, but I've got a lot of ties to the country music industry. So.
Dude, that is legendary, man. Yeah, I'm such a huge fan of that song and their work together. I mean, that is really cool.
Yep. So
wow.
That was fun.
Well,
No,
Jerry, I will add in
awesome.
there too. It's never too late to pick up an instrument, right, Alex? You can always pick something up. You can always learn something. It all just takes a little bit of practice.
Absolutely. It is never too late. Never too late.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if the world's ready for me in the musical industry. I'd rather, like I said, I'd rather play pool. Okay. Let's just y'all sing in the background. I'll make the money on the pool tables and we can both win.
There we go. That sounds like a plan.
Yes. See, I don't have the good singing voice. I'll be the first to admit that I sing in the shower. I sing in the car. It's not great, but I enjoy. I'll play the drums in the background for you guys. How about that? I'll keep a nice little studio beat going. There we go.
That works. Now, did you remain friends with Nancy? And after George's passing and everything.
Not really. I mean, I guess if I called or if I called, back then they would have taken my call, obviously. But
sure.
No, I haven't been in touch with anybody in quite some time with any of the family. So, but yeah, that was really. I think that might have been the second to the last time. No, I know it wasn't the last time I saw her because George signed on my birthday. I went to a bar, to have after the album came out, and I made George sign it. And then I went up to Billy Bob's to have Merle sign it. They brought me in that back room at Billy Bob's where where you guys get to go. And I sat there for 30 minutes waiting for him to come back there, and then he autographed it. But yeah, it was cool. I've got a CD cover with my photo with their autographs on it.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
that was I guess the last time I saw any of them, and then they passed away shortly. So
What a treasure though, man. That's amazing. That is so cool.
Jerry, you've
so
done it all, man. Is there anything you haven't done?
I don't know. I've done a lot, but I'm 52 years old. Y'all are talking about, he's born in 96. I know you're a 90s kid too. And
94. Yeah.
so, yeah. So yeah, I was born in 71. So I've been around for a while.
Been around for a while.
That
Well,
is so cool.
we won't tease you about that, Jerry. We won't tease you about
No.
that.
It's okay.
But
Look, I'm old. I get it. I'm up past my bedtime,
there we go. Taping late on a weeknight. Absolutely. Well, Alex, I think too the other connection that's of course worth noting, being from Wilkesboro and that North Carolina connection, of course, the deep history NASCAR has there, hand in hand with the area and that part of the country. Growing up in that era, what was that like being immersed in the NASCAR culture? I know the racing had stopped at North Wilkesboro for some time, but you were still nonetheless a big part, or at least in a big part of NASCAR country. Did you grow up a fan? What was that like in that time?
Well, I was born, of course, the year that the track actually shut down, 96. And if I remember right, I think Jimmy Johnson won the last race there in 96. I feel like that's right.
Or his teammate, Jeff Gordon. Yes, Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gordon. Yes, Jeff
Yeah.
Gordon won the last race there. Excuse me. So he won the last race there, and I've got a newspaper somewhere. It's like one of those steel print newspapers, and it's got where he won and everything. That came from the Speedway,
Mhm.
and but yeah, so it shut down the year I was born. You drive by it every day, just sitting there, kind of wasting away. Slowly becoming dilapidated, and every year, something else would fall apart, and it was always this big talk about we want to get the track going again. And in 2008, it was in 2008 or 9, we tried to bring the track back. We had a movie called Red Dirt Rising, I think was the name of it. It's late. My memory is terrible, and I still haven't caught on sleep from this past weekend. But yeah, so I think it was called Red Dirt Rising. It was about the how NASCAR got started and the bootlegging and all that. And so we did a show into that at the track, and I would have been around 12 at the time, and went over there and did that. And they had a few late model cars, that would run. I did a couple races there, and the turnout wasn't great. And the only thing that I can deduce would be that the timing wasn't right. It's kind of like with the classic country coming back right now. Like I think something has to be removed from our spectrum for long enough for us to truly miss it. And I think in 2008 or 9, the track had only been shut down for 12, 13 years. NASCAR was it was kind of taking the big corporate turn, towards the super speedways, and some people didn't like that, So 2008, 2009 was a strange time period to try and bring it back, and then you fast forward to 2021 when which I was privy to the track coming back long before most people were, because I was a part of it. I was part of bringing that back and, doing the song and, the whole We Want You Back campaign. So I was over there, probably 7 or 8 months before anybody knew there's a bug or something in my throat. But so I was over there a long time before anybody knew it was coming back. And so it was really cool to get to be a part of that world. And you could really feel the community around it. Once it started to become public knowledge, you would see the We Want You Back signs start popping up in everybody's yards and stuff like that. And so we knew it was coming back, and there was so much enthusiasm around it at that time. And you're talking about, 24, 25 years, 25 years at that point. So the timing's right. I mean, a quarter of a century at that point. So it was really exciting to have that because not only is it something for people to do, it's a great economical thing for the community. The economy needed that boost. Wilkes County's community lost a lot of things, over the years, and that was definitely one of the hits. So having that has really helped. It's been really cool to be a part of that, and get to be kind of welcomed into the community. Because I'm not super well versed in NASCAR. Like I said, I love cars. I love I love anything with an engine. I'm not a huge electric car fan because of that reason. I like gas.
I don't like electric cars either. They suck.
I like
and I
gas.
broke the story about NASCAR's electric car. So,
There you go. I like to hear an engine. I not like the new Dodge Charger that they come out with, where it's got the electronic engine, sound that they got a little speaker mounted by the exhaust. That's
the baffles. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I love diesel. I love gas. I know how to work on them. But I'm so involved with what I do. Being an independent, like it literally is a 24/7 job. I mean, you really have to be working it. So I don't get to pay as much attention to a lot of the standings as I'd like to. But I do have a lot of ties and good friends in the community. Ryan Newman's a good buddy of mine, Jeff Hammond, and so I'm in the community. I'm just not as well versed as I'd like to be. My grandpa watches every week. That's like a ritual of his. But it is really cool to be a part of that community and to get to know these guys, and because they're just such great people. Everybody we've met in the racing community, and SMI, working with them with North Wilkesboro Speedway has been great because they're great people and really down to earth, and just everybody just gets along. It's just everybody's just good old boys. It's not there's no arrogance. It's just it's really cool to see that, because a lot of times when you get into the famous people, it's like Bobby Labonte. Got to be friends with him, and a legend. Bobby Labonte's a legend, but just the most down to earth guy you've ever met in your life, and so cool, man. So cool to live in such an area with such rich history, and growing up. My grandpa, we went over to Junior Johnson's house. Junior Johnson lived just down the road, and we'd go over there, and we had breakfast on I think it was Sunday mornings, and it's just really cool. Such a rich area for that. So it was a lot of fun.
I want to point out real quick. I want to go back to Red Dirt Rising, released in 2011. Here's the IMDb trailer on it. Based on a true story about the early days of stock car racing, a story of love in the time of moonshine, as three of stock car racing's earliest heroes come of age to find escape from life's challenges on the track, ultimately shaping their future and their families and the auto racing during the Fighting 40s. So there you have it. I didn't know about this movie. I've never seen it, but I'll definitely check it out now.
You should. It's a good movie. It's well done. Most of it was produced in the area, and it's a really good, very reasonably historically accurate movie.
Has to be better than Talladega Nights.
Well, it depends on which scale we're looking at. Historically accurate, probably, but can you really beat Will Ferrell? I
I hate that movie. I do.
Positive or negative, it was good spotlight for the sport, especially cars, all those movies in that mid-2000s. And Alex, being from that area too with Wilkesboro and getting to do that pre-race concert for the All-Star race in 2023, did it kind of feel like a full circle moment, being able to have a big crowd like that, the Speedway coming back, having that hometown concert, if you will? I mean, what was that like to be able to play that gig?
It was definitely full circle, because we were doing the music video we did it all very quick. Actually, I recorded the song "We Want You Back" in September of 21, and we did the video like right after, and then we had it all released by, if I remember right, it was December 10th, 2021. So it was all very quick. And the reason we did it so quick is because if we didn't, the Speedway was going to look really good. We didn't want that. We wanted the Speedway to look like it had for the last 20 some years. We wanted it to look dilapidated, because doing a "We Want You Back" song with a Speedway that looks brand new it doesn't have the same, the same allure. So we had to do this fast, because we knew it was coming back. We knew this was coming back, and we wanted to get everybody really excited about that. And so we were hammering this thing out as quickly as we could. And so we're out there, several days doing this thing, us and our team and Jeff Hammond and Bobby Labonte and day in, day out. And we're filming this thing. Terry Parsons, she's the film commissioner, but she was also Benny Parsons' wife. Got to be real close with her, and she's a very good friend of mine and my mom's, and we stay in touch with her all the time. She lives just up the road from my grandpa's cabin, and so we got to know all those people real well, and being there every day, looking at the speedway, with the weeds growing up through the cracks, and the certain things collapsing, and the stands, some of those collapsing, and it was very sad, but we knew what was coming. And so fast forward to 2023, when we were playing that show, there is a little bit of a surrealness when you're looking out at this, what really didn't take very long at all. And I have to give a lot of kudos to Ronald Queen. I don't know if you guys know Ronald or not, but he's the manager of the North Wilkesboro Speedway, and he basically was hands-on for the entire thing, and not only hands-on as far as like orchestrating it, but he was out there doing the work all day. I mean, probably 20 hours, maybe even more a day. I don't know. I mean, Ronald was a hard worker and did so much, and we're so thankful for what he was able to do. And when you are standing there playing and you're looking at what all has transpired in a relatively short amount of time, it was very amazing and very surreal. And it was really something to be proud of, to have been a part of that. And I didn't do any of the work. I didn't make it look good, but we did a couple of events out there, like where we'd play for the volunteers that were out there working, cleaning things up. And then we did the Cars tour. We did that which was called Racetrack Revival. We did that in August of 22. And then, of course, we played at the All-Star Race, both the Fan Fair and Fan Fest and at the track. And so it's really cool to see it all come full circle and to have been a part of it. And it was a very special thing to have been a part of the history, because that will be history here in Wilkes County for many years.
Almost certainly will. And again, he's not on the show tonight, but David did mention about that, the fact that country music and NASCAR just go hand in hand. And he wanted to pass along, he hopes, how NASCAR fans are. They're very brand loyal. They're very loyal to their drivers and their teams. And he's hoping you get that same kind of reaction as well. You get that concert there at the track, and of course, country music and what you're doing with everything you've got with your band. There certainly has to be some loyal fans, and then some crossover there too with the NASCAR fan base.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, with the We Want You Back song, it really did bring about a whole new fan base. I mean, we've got a lot of guys that are very diehard. There's a guy here in town, actually. His name's Matt Winters. And he's this guy is like, he has a second job that he literally just uses this job to pay for NASCAR tickets. Like, that's all. Like, he has a good paying job, but he just took another job as his fun money. He called it a fun money job. And that's what he goes and he goes to these NASCAR races. He keeps like a whole briefcase full of fan cards, or hero cards, I think he calls them. And like, I've got my iPad case over there. It's got like a stack of hero cards that he gave me. He's like, hey man, take some of these. And so like, this dude's a fanatic. And he had no idea who I was until I did that song. And like, this dude's a diehard fan. Like, he would fight somebody for me. Like, I would point at somebody and say they did something wrong. He would go punch them in the face. And so it really is cool to have that community, of NASCAR fans. Like you said, they've always gone hand in hand, and to see so many of them crossing over, it really is cool, and it's a special feeling.
So you can feel free to share some of your 475,000 TikTok followers with Dominic and I. We're a little lacking in that department.
I'm seriously lacking on TikTok, Jerry. That's the only social media I don't have. Instagram and X Games okay.
We've got him beat on Twitter, but our X.
Yeah.
But he's crushing us. He is crushing us on TikTok. I've been over here researching while we're on the show.
It doesn't take much to beat me on TikTok. I mean, on X, because I've never used Twitter. I don't understand it. Like, that's what I was trying to explain to somebody the other day. We were talking about social media, and I was like, people do not cross follow at all. Like, if I hadn't have started posting on Facebook and Instagram, I would still have 5,000 or 6,000 followers on Facebook and Instagram. I started posting my TikToks on Facebook and I'm up to like 300K on there. Started posting them on Instagram and I'm like 116 or 117 on there. I've got like 180, not 180,000.
I know, 185.
180 follow. Yeah.
And I just followed you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
But
that's the thing. Like, how is that even possible? You've got 1 million followers between and including YouTube and Spotify and stuff like that. But it's, how does nobody else like follow you on Twitter? Like, I just don't understand that. Like, I don't pay for followers, guys. Like, those are real people.
I don't understand Instagram and TikTok and all that. I started on Twitter, and that's what I stuck with, and that's where all my big following is. But yeah, I'm not good at the others.
I don't know how to do it. I post, like, you can probably look at my posts on X, and I think the last one was probably at least well over a year and a half ago, because I just don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be posting like I do on the other platforms, or if I'm supposed to be complaining about something and like riling people. Like, I don't know. So I've just never done it. And now they're threatening to like shut it down because of Eli. I don't know. So, who knows?
Who knows?
Free speech on that.
Yeah, exactly. Too much censorship going on right now. Like, I hope it doesn't get shut down. I also hope TikTok doesn't get shut down. I know they're always going after it because, like, obviously, that's a big following of mine. So,
yeah. Well, Jerry, what we need to do is have Alex give us some tips and pointers on how we beef up our TikTok game. We can give him some tips on how to beef up his X game.
I'm okay with that.
Well, what I would say is if you go through my social medias, you will notice that I do a lot of videos where I play multiple parts. There's some where I play like 3 of myself at one time. Sometimes I'm playing a woman. You just never know. So, like, you're going to have to swallow a little bit of pride. That would be my first tip.
The NFL girl does that very well. I don't know if you've seen, who I'm talking about, but she acts like she's the head of the NFL, and then she acts like she's the coach or the players from all these teams, and she tells them how bad they suck every week, and like, are y'all going to show up for a game? And it's amazing. It's probably one of my most favorite posts on Instagram that I read watch every week. So,
I have not seen that, but I'm gonna have to check that out. That's right up my alley.
It's hilarious. So
it works though, man. It's entertainment, and that's the big thing. Like, we live in a generation where, because people ask me all the time, especially musicians, like, how can I, further my reach? And my biggest piece of advice is, like, you have to get creative, because if you just hop on there and you say, hey guys, check out my new song, it's awesome, people are going to swipe away in the first second, because we have swiping thumb syndrome. Like, our attention span doesn't give us more than 2 or 3 seconds. So if you don't catch them pretty quick, they're gone. And that's why I do those little skits, because number one, these platforms care about watch time. And if you're keeping watch time high, even if they're not liking it, they're still going to push your video out further. So watch time's huge. Keep them around. It shows the algorithm that people are staying on their platform. They're spending more time on their platform, even if it's watching your video. So that's really what's helped us, is just long form posting for sure, and keeping it entertaining. But I always keep it related to my music. Like, I don't post stupid stuff just for the sake of posting stupid stuff. It always has to relate to the music first and foremost, because if not, then you're gaining followers for nothing. It doesn't translate to anything.
Absolutely.
Her name's Annie Agar. Annie Agar is her name.
Annie Agar. I'm gonna put that in there for sure.
Yeah, because it's on TikTok. So
okay. Yeah, we got to beat the bar. There's no questions here. That's the biggest lesson learned today. You're listening to episode 161 of Let's Go Racing here with David Starr, Alex Key, our guest this week. Before we move on to news and notes and our fan mail questions that you have sent in, it's kind of just going a little bit back to, like, circling it back, Alex, and all of the cool things you've gotten to do over the years. And as you look towards the future, 5-10 years from now, what would be some maybe goals that you have written down, or things that you're wanting to accomplish in the music industry? What are some things that come to mind as some big things to accomplish over the next 5-10 years or so?
I think the cool thing about doing music is, and it's kind of the same way really with NASCAR, until everybody reaches an age where they want to retire, or, maybe they move into being a crew chief, or, whatever. But with music, there is no glass ceiling. Look at people like George Strait. George Strait, has 61 number one hits, and he's still going. So you can keep going. If you have a great song that does well, you can do another song, that does well. And so that part is really cool, and it's really exciting to think about the future and how you can continue to grow and what is next. As far as goals, I would say, we're trying to do new music every single year. We're trying to do an album a year roughly, and we did miss a little bit of time on that. Last year we had a couple deaths in the family. My grandma passed away, and my uncle passed away a month later, and so that was a really hard time, and we weren't really spending as much time working on recording and stuff like that. So we ended up releasing a little later, but we're trying for that album a year, and that's always a big goal is putting out the best product we can put out, and just building the fan base. We hope to play like the Grand Ole Opry. That would be a huge one. One of our big goals is, because my number one listening base, and maybe this is something he can help with, I don't know, but our number one listening base is Texas. Houston and Dallas Fort Worth are our two biggest, and like, of all my listeners, which I've got like across everything, 400,000 monthly listeners, and the concentration of those are in Texas, and that's because of the type of music I do. But Texas is also like, the people are there, the listeners are there, but the venues are so flooded with so much great native Texas music that it's hard to get your foot in the door to build the tour, because they already have so much to choose from. So that's one of our big goals, is building a Texas tour, because like on every post it's like, when are you coming to Texas? And I'm like, we're trying, guys. Really, we are. So that's a big goal of ours. And
see if you can hold on real quick. See if you can get into like Golden Nugget or LaBerge
okay,
or Horseshoe over in Lake Charles,
okay,
which will draw the Texas market over there. It's only like 30 miles from the Texas border.
okay.
And I know several other, independent country guys do that, and they have shows over there because they can make that draw, and it's at the casino, so it's a little
Oh,
different. So,
okay. Yeah, that would be
yeah,
great.
Horseshoe is a good one, and then Horseshoe, Golden Nugget, and La Berge du Lac. That's three casinos over there in Lake Charles.
There you
Okay,
go, Jared, with the connections as always. Jared,
I love it.
Look, I've been in this community my entire life in the Southeast Texas, from Houston all the way over to Lake Charles. I was the editor of a newspaper here for forever, so I've got a lot of friends, and but I know that's it's where a lot of people go. I think Cooper Allen went over to Lake Charles and played over there not too long ago. I know it because I was there, and so that was he did that. So there's a lot of places to play that are just maybe not in Houston proper, because I know how hard that is to get into that market, but on the outskirts, that Beaumont, obviously it's where Tracy and Mark and Clay and all those guys are from. So we've got some venues here too.
Speaking of which, your buddies there, Clay and Tracy. If they ever need like an opener on a tour, we're all in, man. Because I love those guys. Like that would be chef's
I don't
kiss.
know if Mark's not necessarily touring. He does some stuff. Tracy completely quit touring, and then he just does one-off concerts. I guess when you get the number of hits he's got, and and it is they're pretty much living over in Houston, and he's retired and living the good life with his wife.
And he should. And he should.
And he should. He's got two kids in college, I think, and and I haven't talked to Clay in a while, but he did have a residency at Golden Nugget in Vegas for a long time.
Very cool.
I'll be in Vegas for the NASCAR race upcoming in a few
Mhm.
weeks, but I'll see if I can reach out to his sister and and see what what that's like. But yeah, no, it's this is obviously where I'm from is the crucial market that you're looking for country music.
Oh, dude, it's so important. It's and there's always been such a strange. I don't know exactly what it is, but I've always found there's a very, very strong connection between North Carolina and Texas, and I don't know what the historical connection would be, or if there even is one. But I just find that I listen to so many of the big Texas artists. Alan Jackson, George Strait, George Jones. Mark Chestnut. All these guys, Clay Walker. They've all got songs about Carolina. I don't know why, but I feel like there's something there. So I I don't know, but I've got a strong pull to Texas. I love the Texas community, and I love that they support what we do and that they listen to the music. We've just got to get there, and so we're really working hard on that. And we're working with a couple booking agents right now that are kind of trying to, not. We actually had Robert Gallagher from Billy Bob's reach out, which was insane to have
That's awesome.
the guy from Billy Bob's reach out. Because I knew the name. When I looked down, I was like, where do I know that name from? And then I looked at his email, and it was Robert G something at Billy Bob's Texas, whatever. And so we're trying to work with him and land a date and stuff like that. So it's happening. It's just slower than you would like.
One of the companies I do marketing for, one of the guys there, his name's Jamie Talbert, and he you can look him up. He's a country singer also. He's an independent like you. I'll talk to him tomorrow because I'll see him in the office and see if he's got any ideas as well. We need to stay in touch when the show's over. Let's exchange some information, and maybe I can help you out because I do marketing and promotions and stuff here in Southeast Texas. Well, anywhere, but I'm based out of Texas, obviously.
Well, that would be great, man. Please, any mentorship or expertise you've got in that world would be greatly appreciated.
See what you've done, Dominic. You call me at the last minute to be on the show. You keep me up past bedtime, and I'm helping your guest the best I can. So.
We all help each other here on Let's Go Racing. We're getting him hooked up with a race car ride, possible gigs in East Texas. There's some great Texas connections being made here today, and all thanks to NASCAR on Let's Go Racing.
Thank God for NASCAR, man.
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Time for our news and notes segment. Each week we take a look at the top headlines going on around the sport and around motorsports in general. Jerry, we start this week with the driver swap. We're looking at NASCAR offseason moves happening even before the offseason starts. Somewhat of an audition role, if you will. Justin Haley taking the reins of the number 7 car, flip-flopping with Corey LaJoie, who is heading over to Rick Ware Racing to finish out the last 7 races of the year. This announcement came Friday ahead of the Bristol race with a press conference and teams making the announcement of this swap. Jerry, let's start there because we see these moves. We've seen drivers swap rides before. Ricky Rudd and Elliott Sadler come to mind, but we don't see this typically happen during the season. We have to wait for it to be over. Off-season comes around, changes come for the next year. How much red tape did both of these teams have to go through to make a move like this?
I'm not really quite sure what happened. There was a lawsuit about this, and basically the lawsuit was, hey, we have a 2-year deal with Justin in the car, and that is revolving around sponsorship that the people that were supporting Justin were taking and reselling, and there wasn't an agreement on a driver to replace Justin that was adequate to that sponsorship group. And the second that it was announced that it was Corey LaJoie that would be swapping, boom, the lawsuit's gone. So I think it was a hard, it was a hard thing to get someone of that quality, but that would be up to the same quality as Justin Haley. But when you can if I had to bet on who was a bigger name, and I love Justin Haley, he's a great guy, but if I had to bet on who was a bigger name, if I was a sponsor, I would say Corey LaJoie is a bigger sponsor or a bigger grab than Justin Haley is.
Certainly, and maybe there's a little more of that raw talent with Justin Haley behind the wheel of that car. But certainly, Alex, too, to bring you in on this, seeing a driver have this role or have Corey LaJoie finishing out the year with another team. He had been with his prior team for 4 years, somewhat of an audition role. He's not guaranteed a ride next year. Give us a little bit of inside baseball from a music industry standpoint. Oftentimes, do we see it where maybe a guitarist or a bassist will have like an audition, or they'll go on like a leg of a tour with the band and try like an audition role to see if that's more of a full-time fit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you often, our situation's a little different. Just being, we're not in Nashville. We do live we have a place in Nashville, but we live primarily in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and so we are. I don't want this to sound bad, but we're more limited on, in Nashville, you can throw a rock and hit one of the best musicians you've ever heard in your life. That's how Nashville is, because everybody moves there. If you want to be in today's generation, I always tell people, like, if you want to be an artist, and you can write your own songs and you can play, you really don't need to move to Nashville because you can do your own thing. You can get on social media and you can have a viable career. If you want to be a musician and get paid well for it, A lot of times you got to go to Nashville so that you can get a slot with a touring band, because most of your touring bands are going to be based out of there. And that's just the nature of the beast. So in my situation, where my band is also local, my band is based out of all within an hour of here. We got some in Boone, North Carolina, some near Charlotte, but it's a local thing. So they're very talented. But it's much harder to find those guys here, just because, like I said, there's not as big a pool to choose from. But in the professional touring world, it's very common to, like you said, have a trial period where you're getting ready to go out. Maybe it's not the headlining tour. Maybe you're doing an opening slot for so and so, and you've got a headlining tour coming up in the fall. So you bring on this guy that so and so your buddy recommended. Let's see if he's any good. Let's see if he's good enough to go on the headlining tour in the fall or whatever. And so that's a very common thing. And there's a lot of times, the cool thing about Nashville is, like, when these guys are off the road, like the music that you guys hear when you listen to the albums, that is a Nashville band. That's in a sessions setting. So like John Party's pedal steel player will be the steel player, or George Strait's drummer, his current drummer, is on a couple of the songs. Tim McGraw's keyboard player is on almost every single one of those cuts. And so when these guys are off the road, they're still working. They're coming in the studio and stuff like that. So it's the whole touring musician scene is really cool. But yes, to answer your question, that is a common practice.
Sure, a lot of yeah.
I was gonna say we were in Nashville last year for the NASCAR championship banquet and stuff, and I went over to the Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville Hotel.
Yep.
And there was a guy there at the pool, and he's playing for tips, and then he's like, I've got this, and he had his whole spiel. He's got lights, and all this stuff that's portable. And he's doing that, and he said, I got another gig in an hour. I got to leave here. I got to go there, and he was just rotating gigs in a row.
Oh, it's amazing. It really is, and unfortunately, like, sometimes you get a lot of guys that are super super talented that don't get the breaks that they deserve, and you do find a lot of guys that are just absolutely hammering it out, and they're trying their best to get where they want to be, and they're not getting there. And there is an ideology around that. You go to Nashville and you see a lot of these guys that you might see him doing something like that, and you think, oh man, this guy's kind of struggling. He's doing what he can, just playing for tips. And then you might see him tomorrow at the Bridgestone Arena playing guitar for Kenny Chesney. So you can't really assume anything, because these guys are so, when they're off the road, they're just guys in Nashville. They're playing around, doing whatever they can, or just extra money, fun money, like we talked about. So you don't ever want to assume. Like I said, some of these guys that might be in the corner of a bar tonight will be headlining the Opry tomorrow. You just don't know. It's a really cool town because of that reason.
In the NASCAR world, if you're it's a little, there's a lot of talent out there that never gets the shot because they don't have the money to get the shot. They can drive a car and be the fastest on the track at any track, any speedway or short track in North Carolina. But, if they don't have the money to attract, a team that can put them on in a race, they're not going anywhere. And so we have something, that's an issue in the sport, because the guy, if you went to NASCAR and you had $7 million, okay, sure. If you had $7 million right now, you could go get in a ride.
Wow.
You probably could do it for a lot less. You probably could do it in Xfinity for about 2.5.
Wow.
But if you had $7, I'll bet you within 6 months you could be in a cup car in a back marker team with $7 million.
Well, it's really very similar with the music world, I would say. It's, again, being independent. The only reason we have the followers we have and the listeners that we have is because of social media. If I wasn't decent at marketing, then I wouldn't have anything. I wouldn't have any listeners. But the money aspect, if I had the millions of dollars, of a major label, and we've talked to several major labels, we're still in conversations with 2 or 3 of them right now. But if you have that several $1 million campaign behind you, that's when, like you said, there's people out there, and I'm not talking about anyone. This is not at anybody in particular, but we all know the classic story of this guy over here has got more talent, but like you said, they don't have the money. This guy over here doesn't have as much talent, but plenty of money. So this guy's going to go number one. He's going to be at the top of the charts and everything else because of that backing. And that's where the major labels are beneficial. At the end of the day, they're a bank. You know, they want their money back. It's a loan, but they do have the outlets and the expertise to get your songs and you in front of the audience that you need to be in front of.
Funny that you say that, because I'm not going to say any names, but I know of at least two, probably more. I know there's some other, I just don't know who they are, but two that I know personally who made themselves into a corporation, basically took out a loan to fund their racing career so that they could be where they're at.
Sure.
Exactly like what you're talking about in the music industry. And they bet on themselves because no one else would bet on them as a sponsor. And they basically had to sell themselves, and one way or the other, those investors are going to get their money back.
Yeah, you know, and that's like you say, if you believe in yourself enough, then you should do that. You know, that's what we've done. We self-fund all our own projects. We don't do any crowdfunding or anything like that. Every album we do, we record and pay for ourselves. We bought a 45-foot Prevost tour bus, and I drive it. Because I bought a tour bus, I can't afford to pay anybody to drive it. So, there's that. But I mean, we become an S corp, so we've got that protection on our sides and stuff. So if you believe in yourself and you've got a product or a talent that maybe someone else or the funders should see, but maybe they just don't, maybe they're not keen enough to, maybe they just haven't had the opportunity to, then yeah, absolutely, invest in yourself. Always, if you believe that strongly, take the jump and do it, because at the end of the day, like, you're not going to look back on your life and be like, man, I'm sure glad I didn't spend that money to chase the dream.
True. Very, very much.
What is it? A little, just more, another day older and deeper in debt. What was that song?
That's exactly right. I mean, it's true.
Yeah. Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely. And before we move on to our fan mailbag segment, one more piece of news and notes here, Jerry. Looking at the NASCAR race weekend ahead, Kansas Speedway, we're going to have a triple header with the Truck Series, the Xfinity Series, and of course the Cup Series on Sunday with the Hollywood Casino 400. Looking at the odds, we look at the odds every week and the opening race weekend odds and who odds makers are saying are the picks and the top picks to go. If you had to pick, Jerry, who do you think is the odds-on favorite heading into the Hollywood Casino 400?
Well, Cole Cusimano and Steven Cusimano have not done this week's Kicking the Tires Money Stop podcast. So I don't know who I'm supposed to pick. I hope that they go with what I think we need to pick, and that is Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. I think they're both going to have top threes. If I was going to bet that, I would bet those two as the top three at Kansas. If you'll recall, Kurt Busch went out there a few years ago and won, and then he got hurt, and then Bubba Wallace went out there and he won. And my understanding is those were very similar notes and setups. So they've got that track kind of figured out. I don't know how I know that, but someone told me that those were similar notes and setups. And
it may not have been Kurt.
No, I hadn't talked to him in a while, but it hadn't been recent. But anyway, I have to put my money. I don't care how good Larson is. I don't know how good Hamlin is. I think that now Hamlin might have a little bit of an edge because he owns 2311. So, but if I had to put my money on a team, it would be on 2311 to both of those teams to do very well. I'm interested to see what Cole and Steven say this week on the podcast for our betting podcast. But that's what I'm going with.
There you go. Well, and according to the Caesar Sportsbook odds-on favorites, before any lap has been turned on the racetrack, Kyle Larson at plus 350 or 3.5 to 1. He won the race in May. certainly odds makers are going to give him a short hand there. Danny Hamlin at 5-1 or plus 500. Tyler Reddick, last year's winner, at plus 650 or 6.5 to 1. Christopher Bell at 10 to 1. William Byron, Martin Truex Jr., Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, your defending series champion, all at 12 to 1.
Where's
Alex,
Bubba at?
Oh, go ahead,
Where's
Jerry.
Bubba?
Go ahead.
No, where's Bubba? Where's Bubba's odds?
So, but I don't have him in front of me, but he's been pulling about plus 2,000 to 20 to 1, 25 to 1 at most of these tracks.
Dude, that is a value bet for anybody out there. When I did my bets, that is a steal at 20 to 25 to 1 for Bubba Wallace. Bet that, especially when you break down the odds on a top 5 or a top 10, if you can get it on FanDuel or you can get it on DraftKings Casino or even, some of the other casino groups that are out there, that if you can get a top 10 or top 5 or top 3 with that, is going to be some great odds to make some money back right there.
It certainly will. Jerry's spoken like a true gambler right there, or spokesman for some sort of company. Alex, do you do any sports betting or partake any slots, tables, sports betting, etc.?
What part of I'm a musician do you not get, man? I don't have the money to bet. Shoot, I wish I could, man. No, I like I said, I'm not well versed in any sports. I love them, but I'm not up to date enough to make any educated bet. Other than if you're talking about country music, if you want to say who I could bet on, would do really well 10 years from now or not, then I could do that.
Bet on yourself.
I'm gonna put some money on myself, man. I'm already doing that. But no, I don't do any sports betting. I've only bought a couple of lottery tickets in my 10 years of being able to. So,
hey, smart man. Don't start, as they say, kind of like coffee. You can help it, don't start.
Well, now me and coffee have a strong love relationship, so that ship has sailed.
Me too.
Hey, 3 cups of coffee a day will keep heart disease away. That's what they say.
But,
I believe that,
mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna roll with that.
There you go.
Me too. It's my little hot milkshake in the morning. No sugar or anything like that. Just some whole milk, some coffee. I'm set for the day.
Ooh, yeah, I'm your opposite. I'm the fruit coffee guy. Like, I love a good frappuccino.
Nothing wrong with admitting that.
When you're on the road, I'm always like, we've got if y'all got 7 Brews. You know what a 7 Brew is?
What is
7 Brews is a really cool, little like a drive-through coffee thing that's starting to pop up town to town. It's not like Starbucks where you go in and sit down and stuff. It's just a drive-through, but it's really fun. They've got loud music playing, neon lights and stuff, and we've got one in our town, and it is slowly but surely becoming the reason that I have no money. Because it's like a once a day thing. Very, it's not expensive for what it is, or based on the competition, but when you're stopping through once a day, it starts to add up for sure. So
that adds up real quick, but it's worth every penny, I'm sure.
It is. It's worth the feeling that it brings.
Absolutely, you can't replace it. Money can't buy that.
I do want to push something out real quick. We, I mentioned the other groups out there, but we have a partnership with Grid Rival, and through their betting platform, they're a sponsor of Kicking the Tires. So if you're gonna go out there and you're gonna bet on sports, check out gridrival.com, and because they focus on auto racing. So that's I just want to make sure that we plug them because they take care of us. So.
Give some sponsor. Absolutely, that's what it's all about. Absolutely, yes.
Hey, before we leave the new stuff, this weekend Gene Wachtel is going to serve as Jimmy Johnson's crew chief. That's it's his first race as a Cup Series crew chief, is my understanding. For Jimmy Johnson, he'll be making his Cup Series debut at Kansas as Jimmy's crew chief, and also Richard Stenhouse, Ricky Stenhouse's dad, has been reinstated to NASCAR after doing stupid stuff, and he's back. So we're all is well in the NASCAR world. You're caught up.
That's right. You got in some sort of fight in your backyard there, Alex.
Yeah. That happened. We were on the road when that happened, and so the phone's blowing up and like, are you guys at the race? And we're like, no, we're out of town. And they're like, there's some sort of big fight going on. And like, what? And so I started watching the video, and man, that was a show. That was a pretty good one.
Look, everybody, and I've got a Bob Pockris shirt somewhere around here. I don't know where it's at. I'm looking for it. I may get up and go look for it. But everybody talks about Pockris getting, Zach Sterniolo, or no, it wasn't Zach. It was
The Davey Siegel of Sirius
Is
XM?
Davey Siegel. Yeah, Davey Siegel took the worst hit of any. He was like this. They should have made Davey Siegel, t-shirts, not Bob Pockrass.
Yeah, he got hit pretty good. Looking at the replays of that, man.
I think it's super important. I mean, and this is coming from someone who I live 45 minutes from Mooresville, which is the Nashville of the racing community. People have to remember when they're on social media commenting, they're like, these guys need to be more professional. We're all just a bunch of rednecks here. I mean, so like you can't blame rednecks for doing redneck stuff. So people just need to. You look at NASCAR and how it started again, but you go back to like the '60s and NASCAR before we started, saying they can't run their cars because their cars are too fast. With the Superbirds and the Daytonas and the regulations. Let them duke it out. Stop boohooing about everything.
Amen. In hockey, the rule is you can fight till you hit the ground.
Yeah. Come on, man. Make it fun. Let boys be boys, Shoot.
Boys have at it, as we did 15 years ago, right, Jerry?
That's right. Of course, now they're saying that wasn't really what it meant.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. We can't go back on that one, especially the gnarly fights that came out of that 2010-2011 season.
Right.
Absolutely.
So.
Time for our fan mail bag segment. This is where you, the viewer, send in your questions to the entire panel or for a specific member. Of course, you can get in touch with us on social media, on the post, interact with them. Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast. On X, at x.com/Starr Podcast. Or you can always send us emails too. DavidStarrPodcast@gmail.com. That's where you send in your questions that we ask on the panel. Got a few here in the inbox.
I know none of them are to me because no one knew I was coming on the show.
Well, we do get some general panel ones, so we do have some there. We are going to get to all of us actually for a couple, but this first one actually came in for Alex. This one's from Peter, and Peter wants to know, Alex, do you have a favorite pre or post concert ritual? Like, do you drink certain drinks? Do you have any food before and after? Is there anything that you do pre or post concert?
It's pretty. That's a multifaceted question. When you are so independent, like when I say we're hands on, we're hands on. So literally until the minute we take the stage, like we don't have a whole crew going out there and making sure everything's where it needs to be. I'm like backstage, like handing one of my other band members the guitar. I'm like, make sure this guitar's right. Make sure my pedal board's where it needs to be before we do the walk on and stuff. And so it's always like very rushed. And we always like to take a minute. We pray together and then we do the show. And when the show is over, as soon as the show's over, I book it to the merchandise tent, and that's where I stand and I sign for whoever wants to have me sign. I mean, sometimes it's 3 hours that I'll stand there and sign stuff, and so that's probably the most like common. Like we always do that, no matter what happens before the show. Like I said, we always try and pray together and take the time to do that, and then we always stay and sign and see the fans, visit with them. As far as eating anything in particular, it's just kind of whatever you get to. Try and stay away from coffee or highly caffeinated drinks because they do mess with your vocals and make you feel spacey. And if you're exhausted like we were this past weekend, then the last thing you need is like a lot of caffeine, because you would think you want to be awake, but at the same time, like that extra caffeine on top of a tired brain causes me to forget lyrics and make mistakes that I wouldn't normally make and stuff like that. So it's a fairly lax ritual, very unregimented, usually because the schedules are just so all over the place. But it's no matter what, we always try and keep those couple core foundation things.
I can certainly relate to. We would play our stuff with the band. I mean, we didn't tour all over New Mexico, but we'd play at the casinos or we'd play at some of the stuff that we'd get scheduled for. It was all hands on deck. The setup, tear down, making sure everything got loaded back into the truck. And usually like our post-concert or post-gig type thing was, let's go out and eat as a band, whether it be a local place or whatever. And
absolutely.
And, that was kind of our rituals. Hey, we're going to go eat as a band. We're going to celebrate this victory because you know what? That was a victory. We kicked ass on stage. We're going to celebrate that.
Yeah, you deserve that.
Good for you for going after the show and signing autographs. Trans-Siberian Orchestra, they did that for the longest time. They would sit out there after their shows, even when they were doing double shows, they would sit out there and they would sign autographs until the line was gone. So kudos to you for doing that, because a lot of bands, a lot of drivers, they've kind of lost that touch. And I applaud anybody that goes out there and spends the time, because you don't know what that means to the person that's getting that autograph.
You're exactly right. It really is. Sometimes you forget that how much it does mean to people, because like I'm it's one of those things where it's like, if you say you're down to earth, then you're probably not down to earth. But I consider myself a really down to earth person. Like, I don't look at myself as any more than what I am. I'm just a redneck from North Carolina who likes to sing country music. But then you meet these people who are like, we were in Kentucky doing this show last Friday, and this girl kept saying over and over, she's like, I can't believe this is real life. I can't believe this is happening. She was like losing it. And I'm like, I'm not worth losing it over. But we, it was so late. Like, this festival had been put so behind. The sound guys said, okay, you get 2 more songs. And like, we have to cut it off. It's 1:15 in the morning. And so we finished our last song and we were headlining, and people are saying encore, encore, right? And the sound guys cut us off. And I'm like, I'm not taking the blame. So I'm like on stage saying, the sound guys cut us off. This is not us. We would happily play another song. I'm sorry. Love you guys. Come say hey to us at the merch tent. We'll be there for however long. But they kept saying encore and encore. And I was feeling like they thought it was my fault. So I like take the guitar and go sit on the edge of the stage and, play a song acoustically as loud as I can so people can actually hear it. And then I just get off the front of the stage and like hang out with everybody for a long time. And I think, like you said, that's something that's unfortunately missing from a lot of the music world. And we try and look professional, right? When we do a lot of shows, that was an exception, but most of our shows, like, we will do the big walk on, the big walk out, and I leave the stage while the band's still playing, sneak out to the merchandise tent. That way, when the show's over, the line can start at the merchandise tent, and we hang out there all night. But as soon as I'm done signing autographs, like, I'm back, I'm at the bus, I'm loading stuff up, I'm helping the guys load, and then I'm driving to the next town in the bus. So it is very much on all hands on deck, and you don't get time to become conceited or arrogant. That is for sure. So I don't have to worry about that.
I got the solution for you. I got the solution. My nephew, he plays hard rock, but I bought this for him. It's a portable battery operated. It's only like this big amp and speaker system that he can play, and there you go. I mean, it's small, it's decently loud, but if you get cut off, just plug it in and there you go. So
next time they cut me off, I'll be like, watch this, boys.
Yeah, there you go.
I got you.
Absolutely.
I'll look it up on my Amazon. I'll send you the link to it, and you can. And that'll be the greatest thing you can ever do to the sound guys. Like, you're not cutting me off.
Hit me with the prom link on that.
There you go. There you go. No worries.
The last word on that one. Next question in the inbox. This one comes from Jonathan. This is for the entire panel, and Jerry, we're going to start with you on this one.
Oh no,
guys, who are some of your musical inspirations?
Mine. Well, I mean, I like everything. Okay. So remember, I was born in the 70s. So I went through the 80s. I went through the 90s. Obviously I like George Jones. Obviously I like Merle Haggard, but I like Tracy Byrd. I like Randy Travis. I'm trying to think of who I've seen in concert and actually met through the years. So I've met a lot of people. I've met Madonna. I liked Madonna when she was old school Madonna, not now. So I mean, my musical interests and things they vary. If you look at I mean, I just became a big Frank Sinatra fan. Okay, and it wasn't that I didn't know who Frank Sinatra was, but I was in Vegas in, I forget when it was, 98 maybe, whenever Frank Sinatra passed away. I've got it. But anyway, when he passed away, it was in like April or May of 98, I believe. So the Vegas Strip went dark. Like that's the first time or one of the only times this Vegas Strip's ever gone dark. Well, he has a song called My Way, and you should listen to it because it's actually pretty cool. But Sammy Davis Jr. has an amazing song as well. So I have been listening lately to a lot of Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., that era, that Rat Pack era. And when I'm in Vegas for the race coming, I'm actually going out on Wednesday early so that I can go to a Rat Pack tribute performance, and then I'll do that. But I mean, I just as easily go to the Eagles that are playing at the Sphere as well. So, I'm all over the place. But to know that I knew George Jones when I was a little kid, and that Clay's sister was a friend of mine. Kim was we went to school together, and I know Tracy, and I can call him on the phone. That type of thing, because I worked in radio before I got into TV. There was literally a radio station through the woods behind my house when I was growing up, and that's how I met Madonna, because I would bug the DJ so much that they finally just gave me a job of working the board and learning how to work the board. And then they needed somebody to go take photos in Houston. I'm like 16 years old. Okay. I go to Houston to the Summit, which is now the big church over there. And it's Joel Osteen's church, but it used to be the Summit. I'm there shooting photos of Madonna at 16, 17 years old for a radio station. So it was the coolest thing ever. I've done a lot, but that's why my musical interests are across the board. So I can't pick one, but I can pick a bunch of them.
I know, Alex, you definitely have a song that talks about it, but tell us too, for those that aren't familiar, who are some of your inspirations and your musical taste?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's so many, man. It's I grew up, not only am I blessed to have grown up in the home of, NASCAR, but I've also grown up in the arguably at least the runner-up home of bluegrass. Most people say it's Kentucky. But we have a lot of bluegrass legends here. Like Doc Watson. I'm sure. I guess you're probably familiar with Doc Watson. He's one of the biggest bluegrass players, and so I grew up around him. My uncle Herb Key is a big bluegrass player and plays with a guy named Wayne Henderson. They build the Henderson guitar. Which everybody in the country music world's got a Henderson. They've built for almost everybody. Even Eric Clapton's got a Henderson. So I was deep in that music world, but I didn't lean into bluegrass. I definitely leaned into the country side of things. And like I said, George Strait's always been my number one as far as musical influences. That was. Mama raised me on that, and she raised me on, the Alan Jackson and, Mark Chesnutt. I mean, all those guys. That's what I grew up listening to. And I would definitely arguably say that George Strait is my number one biggest musical influence. But I think that's so cool about the way I try and, I try and mix up the sounds on the albums. So when we're going into the production phase, I try and I don't want just one sound. I don't want it to sound I don't want it to get boring. I don't want it to sound like when they listen to one song, it's like, oh, this guy's strictly influenced by so and so. So when you listen to across the board, you're going to hear songs that are influenced by George Jones. Certain runs, vocal runs that I do that I learned from George Jones, the way he throws his voice. And there's some that are influenced by George Strait and Alan Jackson, and so it's a very broad influence that has at least influenced me as an artist. And I really do look up to those guys. But the song that I think you're referring to is Willie Whalen and Mama, where it talks about, they said mamas don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys, but Mama didn't like that too much. She gave me the guitar and let me drive old trucks. And that's very true. So my biggest influence is definitely Mama. She's always taken great pride in making sure that I follow my dreams and that I do what I want to do and being the most important part in keeping that going. So she's been a huge influence in the music itself. So that's really cool too. But that's a great song, and I love that song. And it's a true story. So that's really cool, and I guess
It
a
is a
pretty
good
good
song.
overview. Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
yeah,
good
absolutely.
overview.
Great song if you haven't had the chance to take a listen to that too. And Alice, I don't know if you can relate to this, but maybe you can. Like, I always tell everybody, we grew up in the 90s, born in the 90s, but I grew up in the wrong era. I would have been a great 80s kid. They say, oh, what's your favorite music? Oh, whatever my dad was playing, whatever my mom was playing. That
Sure.
blend of that Americana sound, that classic rock, classic metal, all that kind of stuff I grew up on. But I had the pleasure of playing in a band for 8 years with my dad. I
Right.
played drums. He was the lead guitarist in that band, little project we had.
Oh,
And it
cool.
seemed like a lot of our music got influenced from that era. And I grew up a big Cars fan. Never got to see the Cars live, but you'd hear Elliot Easton play a solo like "Just What I Need" or "Best Friend's Girl" or "Candy" or any of these deep track hits or any of these big ones. And I feel like I would hear my dad in a lot of that too. So really cool to have that as an influence. And over the years too, gotten to know the keyboard player of the Steve Miller Band, Joseph Wooten. And so between the Steve Miller Band, the Cars, I feel like those have been a big influence on me. And that really influenced us as well in the recording studio. I think a lot of our stuff kind of has that classic rock 80s, 70s kind of sound to it for sure. So I definitely grew up in the wrong era. I can't speak for anyone else, but I certainly did.
That's so cool. I love that, man. That is awesome.
Yeah. Final question in the inbox here. This one comes from Riley. This is also for the panel as well. So, guys, we'll start with Alex this time. Have any of you ever tried your hand at racing? Now, you talked about go-karts, but anything beyond that?
So I actually had because I'm not stroking my ego, but I'm a pretty good driver. I'm very competitive. I grew up, I remember we went to Galveston, Texas one time, and I was 10 years old. And I've always had a deep connection with cars. I've always loved cars, and the Dodge Charger, the 4-door one that we all kind of hated at first, and then somewhere along the way we're like, yeah, it's not too bad. But the Dodge Charger had just come out, the 2006 Dodge Charger, and we went to Galveston, Texas. It was a business trip, and I was 10 years old, and we had a rented Dodge Charger. That was the car that we got from Hertz or whatever. And my mom was like, "Okay, I'm gonna let you drive in over here in this cul-de-sac." There was like this empty, random cul-de-sac next to the beach, or no other cars were or anything. And she was like, "I'm gonna let you, drive it. Just be cautious, go slow, And so I'm behind the wheel of a Dodge Charger, So I get down to the end of the cul-de-sac and I do a freaking donut at 10 years old, in this 5.7, Hemi Dodge Charger. And she's like, "Okay, get out. You're coming back to this side. That's you're cut off. You're done." So fast forward, and I actually I met a guy who he wanted me to pursue driving his drag car, which was an NHRA car, and he it was one of those high technology cars anyway. I mean, it was one of those computerized things. And Mama was not going to have that. Like, she was not a fan. I did think about, at one point in time pursuing getting my, I think you get a NASCAR license, and getting into the sport. And then that's kind of when music took over. But I'm a huge fan. Like, I've driven the big go-karts, the ones that go really fast and stuff like that. And I don't think to this day that I can remember, I don't think I've ever lost a race.
Ooh, there we go. So just putting this out here, you're going to have the fastest lap time at David's racing school here when that happens. At least with the group.
In Myrtle Beach Speedway. So we were part of a Mopar club, and we've still got it. I've got a 70 Challenger RT, and we've got a 6.1 Hemi Challenger, and went down for this Mopar week, and Richard Petty's drivers were down there, and they had Petty's garage cars and stuff. And so Myrtle Beach Speedway was still standing at the time, and they were having time trials. And so, of course, Petty had all the, supercharged. At this time, this would have been in the 392 era before the 6.2 Hellcat came out. So it was still just the 6.1s that they had stopped making those. So you had the 5.7 and the 392, and of course the V6s. But they had all these souped up 392s with the Petty, superchargers and stuff on them. And so they had their professional drivers out there doing the time trials, and you could enter into the time trial if you wanted to. And our tires were about gone on the 6.1, and I was like, you know what? they're gonna beat me. I mean, these are professional drivers. They've got much faster cars, but I'm gonna give it a shot. So I go out there, dude. I wiped the floor with them. I absolutely demolished them, and that's like one of my, as far as in the car world, that's like one of my big accolades. I've got a trophy and everything. I beat all of the Petty's Garage drivers. Just and like the minute we were done, I go do a victory donut, and and the Petty's Garage, like they're loading up their cars, they're out, they're gone. So because I was 16 at the time, and they're like, the 16-year-old kid just beat us in a car with 150 less horsepower, and it was really cool. So I've never professionally raced, but I think I might be able to hold my own. I don't know.
Never too late. Maybe can't rule it out. Yes.
You probably beat them with less horsepower because you didn't have to get off on down throttle going through the turns, so you were able to hold it open, so you didn't have to come off the gas.
Less horsepower is not always a bad thing.
Exactly right. Even despite what NASCAR fans say.
How about you, Jerry? Ever raced?
So believe it or not, there's stupid people in the world that let media people drive their race cars. So yes, I've never raced professionally, but I have gone out, and 2 years ago when we did this at Daytona, it was not David's driving school, it was a different driving school, but at Daytona I was the second fastest of all the media. I was very proud of that. But that's the extent of my racing, was being able to say that I was the runner up to I think it was just Sturniolo.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was that was cool, because there was like Mark Garrow was doing it, Brad Gilly was doing it. A couple of the, influencers were out there doing it, and I had a lot of fun. But I will say this, I was holding my breath because I'm like, I didn't have to sign anything like a waiver if I wrecked or anything. So I'm like,
just ruin it for everybody. They're gonna make you sign a waiver next year.
Yeah. But I sponsor Ryder Wells. He's an up and coming race car driver, and he moved from Texas to North Carolina. He's up there running with BKR with Bell Kinaha Racing, which is it's a microsprint team that's owned by Christopher Bell and Brian Kinaha. And so Ryder and I went go-kart racing. He's won national go-kart championships, and he's won some micro races, and he's done some truck racing on the Super Truck Series over in Houston. But we went go-kart racing at Andretti, and I was on a flyer. Okay, I was going to beat my driver, and he wrecked me.
Oh,
no.
Flat out dumped me.
You wrecked the sponsor.
He
No, you
flat out dumped me.
No, let the sponsor win, dude. Come on,
Yeah,
man.
that's
Exactly right. And somewhere around here in this room, there's a trophy from Charlie Crawl and ARCA, because ARCA does a go-kart race every year at Indy when we're there for the for the ARCA and the IndyCar, for the NASCAR weekend. And I was the fastest of all the media during the ARCA race. Well, the next year we went there, and I got my trophy and all of that. Next year we get there, Charlie he doesn't just dump me, he takes me out. He waits for me to come around the corner, and he hit me so hard, I still have back pain. Okay. And that's been 2 years ago.
Shoot.
So if you see Charlie Crawl, he knows he's got one coming. So ARCA's PR guy, Charlie, he's got it.
Oh my God.
But yes, I have done some amateur racing in the media realm. So, but yeah, that's the extent of that. I do have a sim, and you can ask Kyle Busch. I suck at sim racing. So but he knows that I didn't wreck him. So but anybody else will tell you that if they saw me on the sim, despite however much money I've got invested in this thing, I suck at sim racing. That's why Seth Egger does all of our esports and iRacing stuff.
Yeah, sim racing is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I had the pleasure of racing over the years with guys that actually made it. I mean, I don't know about you, Jared, but I was usually the last car running, or one of the last cars running, not towards the front by any stretch of the imagination, but like you've gotten to do some go-kart racing, a little bit of. I got to actually test a dirt track car here. It was like a 1986 Monte Carlo with a slope back window, and it was like in the bomber class. And I got to know the racer. Shout out Ken Kurtz. I know you listen to the show every week. And Mr. Kurtz let me drive his race car out there at this little 3/8 clay mile track we have in the next town over. And man, I'm getting more and more confident behind the wheel. Did about 12 laps, and you can really feel that surface change below you, like lap by lap, as the dirt starts to compact a little bit. You got to adjust your line a little bit. I feel like it was a good learning experience as I was going. And I pull in the pits after, and he's like, "Well, aren't you going faster?" Well, I don't want to wreck your car, but nonetheless, a fun time. That was a great learning time. I feel like it gave me a better perspective when you're trying to cover a sport that involves circle track racing and you have a lot of guys with a dirt background. Great opportunity to really get that firsthand experience.
I think that's why a lot of I'm sorry. I think that's why a lot of people like North Wilkesboro is in talking to a lot of the drivers before they are doing the repaving. It was a driver's track. It was very much a driver's track, and you really did have to. You had to become one with the track in order to not just completely wipe out, because that was the bigger problem we were having at the All-Star race in the first. And I know in the truck series and at the very beginning of the actual All-Star racing, people were wiping out trying to learn the track because it was loose. It was a really loose track. So that I can not having professional racing experience, I can understand why it would be it'd be cool to have that experience of learning the track.
I think David should let the NASCAR media take the cars out in a media race at Texas Motor Speedway and see, but we may have to do it on time basis, because I can only imagine, as dysfunctional as the NASCAR media corps is, some people might want to take somebody out to settle some scores. So I would think we'd probably be better off if we did it at a time trial basis. But that might be something that David could do and promote. You need to pitch that to him, Dom, and say,
yes.
so, look, it'll be a good thing to get media to the track. We can have something fun and see who the top media racer is at Texas Motor Speedway in David's racing school.
As long as Charlie Crawl's not there, right, Jerry?
Dude, he's got one coming. He knows it. He knows it.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to make note of that. Guys, this has been a great show. And before we wrap up here, let's go around the room. Alex, let's start with you. Plug away. Where can fans get in touch with you? And what's going to be keeping you busy here over the next days and weeks?
Absolutely. Yeah. As far as, staying in touch with us, Facebook, it's Alex Key. Look for the little blue check mark and the cowboy hat. A lot of fake accounts, but as long as it's got the little check mark, and you can usually discern which one's real. TikTok and Instagram are both at Alex_Key_music. Don't worry about X, because we've already covered that. I'm not an active user.
Yeah.
But Spotify and Apple and all those Amazon Music. I got all that stuff on all those places. So go check it out on there. Love to have you. And if you message us, it's really, it's either me or my mom. She's my manager. She'll see it sometimes, or I'll see it. And if I don't see it, she'll tell me. So that's really us, answering all that stuff. So it's because we are very hands-on team. So you're really talking to us. Because I had a guy today from the show in West Virginia sent a message, a picture of his Silverado. So we were talking about old Chevy trucks, because we restored one for my grandpa back last year. And so we got talking about old square bodies and stuff. And so he sends these pictures, and I reply, and he's like, "Well, I hope this is really you and not somebody just answering for him." I'm like, "No, dude, it's really me." Like, so those are definitely the best places to stay in touch with us. And over the next few weeks, we're getting ready to actually start album number 4. The recording process of that, been writing and working on that. We're playing several more shows. We've got one coming up in Nashville at Nashville Fall Festival on the 12th of October. We're playing at 4 p.m. That'll be a fun show. Then October 19th, we're playing at West Jefferson, North Carolina, which is pretty close by, at a fundraiser they're doing up at Saloon Studios. That's October 19th. And Cancun Cantina in Maryland, Hanover, Maryland, October 26th, I think. So a lot of cool shows, mostly one-offs going into the off season coming up, but a lot of fun stuff we're really looking forward to. And just, I always tell people say, well, what's going on? I say, it's more of the same, but I'm living the dream. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Living the dream. Yes, sir. And Jerry, how about you, man? Plug away. Where can people find your work, stay in touch with you, and what do you got on the docket the next few weeks?
Obviously, the website is kickingetires.net, and you can reach out there, kickingetires@gmail.com is the email address. But then you've got, for us on Twitter, that's our X, that's where we're at. It's Kicking the Tires. My handle on X is Jerry Jordan _KTT, because I'm, to separate that, and I want the company to have their own message and me to have mine because I'm controversial. But none of this stuff is possible without Cole Cusimano, Seth Eggert, Justin Schuler, Rachel Schuler, Matt Corson, Zach Catanzaretti. Those are my group. They really work with us and make sure that we have content each week and do stuff. I'm easy to find. You can reach out to me, email, but my phone number is 409-498-1074. A lot of people don't give out their phone number. I don't care. Call me. I get calls at all hours of the night. If I'm awake, I'll answer it. If I'm not, I won't. But so it doesn't bother me. Send me a text, whatever. We cover the sport. We've been doing this for 23 years. I don't plan on going anywhere in the next couple of years for sure, unless my wife says otherwise. But so far, she's been pretty darn supportive of this, believe it or not. And so yeah, you can find us on all the social media channels and just look for us, Kicking the Tires. So we're easy to find. I'm easy to track down.
There you go. Same as my wife, Jerry. Very supportive of what we do here with the Racing Experts. We're going to have a crew out at Kansas Speedway this weekend with Josiah Kopp and Colby Evans covering all the action for us, and our team covering remote as well. We do a really good job, and you'd be surprised at how maybe there's other companies that may really go heads on onto some of the technology. We're old school, and we have an old school text message group. That's how we stay in touch with a lot of stuff. No Slack or anything like that. So just a little inside baseball there with our team. But nonetheless, we appreciate you mostly, the listener who listens every week to our show. This is not possible without you. So we thank you on behalf of David, Tyler, Alex, and Jerry. Of course, you can get in touch with us here on the show, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. You can reach us on X at x.com/starpodcast, facebook.com/davidstarpodcast. And of course, all of the podcasts uploaded each and every week, new episodes out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And of course, as Tyler says, be sure to leave us that 5-star review, or don't leave us one at all. For Jerry Jordan, Alex T, I'm Dominic Aragon. This has been another edition of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. We'll see you next time.